op-eds, other things. And opinion polls, we love to see where the opinions are, and that's really kind of what plebiscites and referendums were. They're kind of a consultative poll of what the public feels. So this is what we tended to use to gather information about what was happening. We could then take all that information about what consumers felt and thought and bring that to food retailers. People like Loblaws as a grocer, people like McDonald's and Burger King, A&W, all of those people have a vested interest in supplying what their consumer wants and not supplying something the consumer doesn't want. So that's a very effective, and I'm going to talk more about those policies. And then the second part is the labeling, because we certainly saw evidence in the UK and elsewhere where labeling at the point of purchase does make a difference in what people choose. It informs them at the point. They don't have to remember it in their head from a story I read in the newspaper a month ago about what the difference between free run and free range was and what's a cage. So it's very effective to get them at the point of purchase. And then industry also has their own campaigns and regulations and policies. So yeah, I mentioned about the ads. They might do some campaigns to maybe not affect change or to affect change more slowly. Again, this is where a lot of they were looking at the emotional responses people were having to these animal videos and animal concerns, and not just the videos, but in general, 75% of Canadians feel that animal welfare is important and humane food production is important. So they knew this, so they tried to bring a little bit of that emotion back to the farmer, and knowing that people also have same kinds of empathetic feelings towards human beings. And so there's lots of nice pictures of the family farm and strolling down the hills. But that then focused, a lot of these other campaigns focused into some of the boards taking their own action before the national board would take it. And we had Manitoba Egg Board was the first one to rule no battery cages or retrofits on existing cages after 2018. And then this summer, the BC Egg Board also put in a moratorium on retrofitting or renovating those battery cages into enriched. And part of the issue that they had was they didn't want all their producers running out and putting in a certain system only to find out that the codes that were about to come out dictated something else, or that consumers weren't going to buy it. So they just kind of put a halt, because some people were converting over to enriched, and said, let's just wait and see. So a good pragmatic stance for them. But the 2017 recommended codes of practice are really the industry's response to having a level playing field and having some new codes that take a look at animal welfare. So I'm going to focus on the three bolded: purchasing policies, labeling, and the codes of practice in that order. So purchasing policies. You'll be happy to know that UBC was one of the first. SFU was number one. University campuses to go with a cage-free egg policy. And that meant that any of the food facilities on campus had to serve cage-free eggs. And that meant both liquid and shell eggs. But they only could get enough for the shell eggs, so they backed it off and they went with shell eggs for the longest time. And then we had the resolutions for the municipal councils. And while municipal councils don't really have much control over many food venues, what they do have is this non-binding resolution that brought the attention out in the media again. It was an encouragement for local businesses to go cage-free. So it was really getting it out in the public awareness, that, oh, other people are telling me that maybe this is a good way to go. And so I'm a food operator, I'm a restaurateur over here, I'm just trying to run a business. I'm going to kind of listen to what's percolating out there, what's popular with consumer trends and things. So they're effective from that perspective. And then what you have after all that is you get these numerous retail and grocery cage-free commitments. They're not necessarily always a policy, it's an intention so long as supply is there. But the very first one was Compass Foods Canada, division of Compass Foods International. And they said that we will supply to any of the universities asking. We'll start with the universities, we will provide cage-free eggs in our supply chain. And that's how come we've got so many universities and colleges on board. There was others in between, but I thought I'd just skip right to the last year. All of a sudden, in 2016, we're just seeing this wave of retailers responding, McDonald's and Starbucks and Wendy's. Now, it's not like it just happened overnight. We were talking to them back in 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. But finally, the commitments came through because I think they felt that the egg industry could finally maybe supply them with what they needed. They didn't want to be left hanging, making a commitment without any production. And since we have trade barriers and we don't allow imports, they had nowhere else to go. They couldn't just go down and say, well, if you're not going to give it to me, there's a great producer in Washington State, I'll just swing those in. Only the graders and egg producers can decide what gets imported. So the retailers were really a little at their mercy. In 2016, we had A&W commit to an earlier cage-free by 2018, which is kind of nice to see. And Aramark, another food service provider, they just announced this week that in addition to Cage-Free Canada to 2022, they're going to be cage-free globally by 2025. So that's a significant task. The one I left out in the middle was just the retailers. I know David sits on one of the boards with Loblaw, I believe. And the Retail Council of Canada, a lot of the grocers were independently looking at doing this on their own. And then they went to the Retail Council and said, how about you just handle it for all of us so we don't all have to have these conversations with the various activists and groups coming in asking us to change. So that's what happened with that announcement. So in addition, there's a little bit of looking, I think, by some of them at labeling, but one of the things that we did do, I'll get to, is a BC labeling program. But before I go there, setting that up, the egg labeling was the other activist tool. So in 2008, partly as a result of the European ban, they started the egg labeling in the UK, and they did see some definite changes in terms of cage-free sales, increasing at some stores by 53%. And then in 2011, it was the first time that free-range eggs sales exceeded cage egg sales ever. So that was, well, other than the time before cage eggs came into being. So that was a significant achievement. And they followed up on a consumer study in 2013 and found that 75% of consumers now want that clear labeling on all food products, all meat products, dairy, everything else. So labeling matters to consumers. And then we did our own poll at Vancouver Humane Society in each of those 3 years respectively, and found that every year it was increasing in terms of how much people cared about having food labeling generally, humane food animal care, and also labels that indicated eggs from caged hens. So with that knowledge, we took that to Overweighty Food Group. And you may know Overweighty Food Group by their brand names of Save On Foods. And they put in these labels in all of their 140 stores. We started with a pilot, and the pilot showed to us that we're increasing sales of cage-free eggs. And most importantly, we're actually increasing the movement within cage-free from pre-run to organic. I think a lot of consumers were confused about what those carton labels meant, but once they had these, they were able to see more clearly, well, that's actually what I wanted to buy. And I thought I was getting it down here. So really saw an interesting shift, and they continue to have those in their stores today, and I check in every now and then with them, and they tell me everything's going great. So I suspect that means profitable. And the other interesting piece with this is one of the conditions was that we got to take all the other labels off the shelves. So all the other confusing egg labels that the producers had provided, they were wiped out. Only the pricing labels could stay. So it was a good project. We also did some pilots with IGA Marketplace, but we actually didn't continue doing this at the time. There wasn't enough supply in Canada, and BC certainly. We had constantly empty shelves of organics. So it looked really bad to have those spaces empty. So we didn't push any more stores into doing it. We just left it with Overweighty and let them take the benefit of being the first to introduce them. So, industry policies, what are they doing? So, I said the draft codes of practice. They're actually going to be due out this month. And the main point is phasing out battery cages and allowing for more freedom of movement and expression of natural behaviors. And that's certainly what the intent of the codes are. So, allowing them to nest, perch, dust, bathe, forage. It addresses all the phases of production. Not a lot on free range from the draft codes I'm going off of here. There was a public comment period. I think we got 500 different input responses. So I haven't been able to see yet what changed since the draft, but these are from the draft. And they were designating a nest, and I often will call it a privacy area, because it's not a nest as in what you might think of with sticks and hay and cozy and everything. It's basically 3 red plastic curtains that hang down that gives them some privacy from the other hens as they're laying the egg, and it's just usually a mat, rubber mat, or maybe even a metal floor. So it's just some privacy. And they were putting in perches and foraging area, increased space, and then a transition strategy to move them over slowly, so not wait till 2036, which is when they're, how long they have to do this by, but checking in every so often to make sure 50% has transitioned, 85% has transitioned. So a management of that conversion. But the downside, this all sounds great, is that, enriched housing, a lot of people still feel that that's not good enough. Cage is still a cage. It's not a natural environment. And there's very minimal space improvements. And some of the enhancements, too, are a bit minimal. And I thought, rather than bringing you a bunch of numbers on a screen, this is the diameter and length of the perch per bird that's allowed. This is the bird. So not going to be doing any dancing in here. And then for the space allowance, this is the approximate size of the old standards of what each hen was allowed to have as space. And this is the new allowance under the enriched cage. So not a lot bigger. It's not like she's going, yeah, I can really move now. It's pretty minimal, but it's a start, right? And this is also the minimum. We're hopeful that some producers will say, well, I'm going to put maybe less birds in and give them a bit more room. And this is actually the free run space. So each bird, now free run, at least they have the opportunity to go up and down an aisle, and even though this is their per bird space, they can move from this space to another space kind of this big and mingle. But it's not a perfect panacea, I guess is the point. But it is what agriculture is, as Dr. Walker said. It's not the idyllic farms of yesteryear. It's a business, and improvements are improvements, but they're still maybe not what consumers believe them to be. So, and then some of these other things were very, very vague about, inspection is just listen to and look at the birds. Well, if you have 400,000 birds, periodically observe the flocks for looking at behaviors, cannibalism, henpecking. Beak trimming is still allowed with a hot blade, and it's very painful. And you think that beak is used for foraging, for feeding, for preening. It's very important, and the top third gets cut off when they're young. And then the long phase out, of course. And again, back to no monitoring, enforcement, or penalties. And one of the things I'm a bit concerned about after hearing about Australia is that on the free range, there was no mention of numbers of hens, and it only required one shade element in the pasture, the minimum. So there may be more, but the minimum, one of the studies by a University of Guelph researcher, Dr. Harland, I think, yeah, she was saying the most important thing why hens don't often leave the barn to go out into pasture isn't the size of the pot holes, which was long believed the issue and how frequent they were, but more whether they feel safe when they go out there. Are there places they can hide from predators, eagles, etc.? They want to know when they go outside, they've got somewhere to run. And so if you have 1,500 or 6,000 birds, I don't think one shade structure is going to cut it. Plus you would have potential for smothering. So one of the things, as many of you are in the animal science side here, and some of you may be becoming veterinarians one day, I'd like to have you think and challenge what's normal. Much of what's being practiced today is just generally accepted management principles. And it just kind of becomes, that's how we do things. And you start to lose that sort of empathy because it becomes such a normal part of life. So if you start to really sit back, like Dr. Miller says, like what are the little things we can do to just, even changing the feed, start kind of think around the box, think around the cage, and come up with something else. And focus on how the animals thrive versus survive. A colleague of ours that was in the program, Dr. Carol Morgan, she's since passed away, but her thesis was on the ethical dilemma of veterinarians in not just in industry, but in companion care too, companion animal care. Who's your client? Is it the animal that you're supposed to be doing the best by and doing everything possible for their welfare? Or is it the person that's paying you? Is it the owner of the property, the animal being property? who are you beholden to? And try and find that line that allows you to serve both. But at the end of the day, you're there to make sure the animal is healthy, and the other person's wealthy, healthy and survives and thrives. So, and that comes to changing behavior. All of this comes down to human behavior and how we act and what we think of as normal, as I mentioned. So, we all walk around with rules of thumb. It helps us deal. We've got a tremendous amount of things on our mind. And rules of thumb of how I do things just makes my day easier. So if I'm a person that buys on lowest price, you can tell me whatever, but I'm still going to buy lowest price. If I'm a person who buys on ecological and compassion reasons, I don't care what the price is. I'm always going to buy what's the most compassionate. Quality, if nutrition is the most important and welfare comes into that, and you believe that a more nutritious animal is an animal that's well cared for, then those are going to factor in. And really, the only way we get change is when we sort of change the environment. If you think of driving a car, and you have a problem where everyone's always going too fast, well, you can put up a speed limit sign, and some people might change, but most of us are kind of, I always go 60 along here, and there's never a cop, so, but if you put in some speed bumps, I'm going to slow down. You put in a really sharp curve in the road, you make my road more unsafe, it's going to be safer because I'm going to slow down. So we react to what our environment shows us. And, it's easier to force us to react that way than to make me have a conscious demand of my belief system to change. Recycling is another great example where it wasn't, people wanted to recycle, they didn't want to pollute the earth, but they had, it was hard, you had to take them to a different facility, and no one's going to know. Suddenly you come up with a blue box, and you've made my life easier. I can put it at the end of my driveway, and oh, by the way, all my neighbors will see if I'm the only one without a blue box, so I'm kind of getting guilted into this, so I'm going to put it out there. So we copy what others do, we outsource that decision making. And Dr. Walker talked about, I don't know how they make a plane run, and I don't know how they make my iPad and iPod work, but I just trust that they're going to make the right decisions. And I think the same is true with the food industry. We're trusting that if it's on the shelf, that retailer has done everything they can to make sure that it's not made with slave labor, that it's made in an ecologically responsible way, and my food better be, treated with humanity. It better come from a humane source, and I don't want it to be what I've seen in some of those videos. So that's why when behavior change, if you can find the one, the Dean Foods, the overweighty, the McDonald's, the one to make the decision for the rest of us, it's a lot easier to get wide-scale change in an industry, because they've kind of said for all of the consumers, look, we got it. We're going to make sure that all our suppliers meet these standards. And when you come to those grocery shelves, if it says it's organic, it's organic. And that's what we all need. So this was a great quote during the Proposition 2 battery cage battle in California. It was the former president of the CBMA, California CBMA. History of agriculture is about adaptation and change, and we can do better than this. So how can you do better? It's my last slide, I promise. Inform friends and family that their choices really do matter. A lot of people think that they don't have to be, what's one person, but every single person is a vote for that system of production. And if you're not finding it and your grocery store doesn't agree to give you the options, well, don't buy eggs that day, These are some of the symbols, the labels that you can look for in Canada. We mainly have BCSBSA certified and Canada Organic. But we also see, when we travel into the States, we see these in the grocery store as well. Certified Humane, Animal Welfare, Global Animal Partnership is the Whole Foods label. Demeter is kind of like organic with a few other things on top. And the biggest thing I think is it's so cheap. My poor husband, he was riding his bike home, and I said, can you get me the latest egg prices from the grocery store? And he calls me exasperated. What am I supposed to look for? I said, just large eggs in cage, free run, free range, and organic. Well, 3 minutes later, 4 minutes later, oh no, that's not it. No, that one's free run. No, is this free range? The conversation was quite funny. And, but at the end of the day, what we're really talking about between a cage egg and an organic egg per meal, I only eat one egg every day. I have one every day, but I only eat one. So it's 25 cents to give an animal a better life. Pretty minor. People will look at the $3 spread and buy cheaper, but it's 25 cents each egg. So, and of course, less and less as you go through free range and pre-run. And then constantly repeat to grocers for labeling, constantly repeat for labeling, even on menus like they do with Ocean Wise, and ask restaurants to bring those eggs in. I ask every time, what are these eggs? Are they free range? Do you know what they are? Half the time they don't, which then I know it's battery. But then I say, oh, no free range? Okay, I'll get something else. Just keep saying it, and they eventually hear it, and then they start going, yeah, we kind of keep getting a lot of questions about this. So, with that, this is an organic farm. And again, getting back to the picture of what you think it looks like, this actually inside, obviously, inside the barn, and there's about 6,000 birds at this farm, 3,000 on each side. They both have separate couples. But they can go outside and have a lot more room up there. But when they're in the barn, it's pretty crowded. But they have perches, they can go up, they can move, they can wander around, so it's a little bit better of a life. It's giving them some opportunity to forage in all the litter and perch and socialize, etc. Very, very minor henpecking, nothing like that. No cannibalism, but there is some henpecking occasionally. They remove that bird and put it in the hospital. So, if you want more information, it's a bit out of date, the website, a couple of years out of date, but chickenout.ca, Vancouver Humane Society's website, still has a lot of relevant information. And with that, I will take more questions.
Thank you, Leanne. The floor is now open for one question, if anyone has any.
I know you can't have my hand. I actually joked, I got this from the Vancouver Humane Society. We used to take a battery cage with 7 hens in it to our presentations or food events and things we went to. So when I got it from Deborah yesterday, I said, I just made your cage enriched. So, no questions? Oh, one question.
I just really wanted to make sure you weren't questionless. I just wondered if you could expand a little bit more about an inconsistency that seems obvious, and that is, how have you in your experience rectified this growing concern for hens that they ought to be raised in different circumstances with the fact that people by and large seem much different in their buying behavior, and whether you think that regulatory standards or more market-based standards would hasten the process that you personally would like to see resulting in better lives for animals.
So much different there. Willingness to pay, I was going to do a slide on that, but didn't have time. That is a function that we do see. People say one thing in the opinion polls, but when they get to the grocery store, they do something different. There certainly is an increase since a lot of the attention on the issue has been in the news and in papers, so people are more aware and they are making more decisions towards, especially if they fit in that rule of thumb group that have compassion and ecologically responsible choices. But I think one of the biggest things that's really needed, and I used to be in the business sector before coming into this side, I'm always more pro-market. I think regulations are, I just don't think they are as effective and as meaningful, probably, as retail-based market introductions of either we're not going to sell these eggs anymore, we're only going to carry cage-free. That way, I don't think people will go into the store and not buy them. I mean, maybe people like my mom who still buys on price, but she does buy free run, no? It took me many years, but she is a total price shopper. But now she's changed, but she goes to the farm gate because they're cheaper there. So I think there's just maybe some things we can do, and better labeling especially, to help encourage people. I've seen some people standing, just looking at the labels and reading them. When we first put them in, I'd sit and I'd observe from the other aisle. And some people would just not even notice them, just grab and go. But I think every 8th visit, on the 8th visit, they might notice them a bit more. I think retailers can certainly do a lot on the pricing side. When the eggs go to the grader, the cost of production is set. The margins really come at the retailer side. And I think there's a real grab for margin on organic goods especially. I'd like to see them doing something to help encourage and support the farmers that are transitioning. So, but the grocers are always complaining about there's no margin in food, so they have to make it up on these other products. It's a bit of a battle, but and I think regulation from the industry itself, just to kind of keep, themselves defensible. Having more guidance, more training, and more checkups to make sure everybody's so that the guys that are following the rules don't get pulled down by those that aren't. So, market first, regulation after. Oh, she's loud. I'm just going to tell Dr. Fraser it's her fault, not mine. I'm going on.
I just wanted to follow up on the labeling, because I guess the way I look at what you did with Save On is that you made labeling easy. Because the literature actually says that labeling, for the most part, is extremely confusing, because it's a combination of complicated labels and lack of labeling, which puts the uninformed client, which is really the consumer, at a really, really tough spot. So it doesn't surprise me that many of them buy based on price, because it's the only thing that they can understand.
Yeah.
So, your example was extraordinary in that it made it very simple, and it was really interesting. I mean, you said there's a clear shift. So under those circumstances, labeling works really well. It just comes down to how you define what labeling is.
Yeah. With those labels, we really did want to make it, what is it people are asking about? They just want to know, are they in cages or are they organic? What do you mean by free range and free run? So underneath they said things like, hens in cages, behaviors restricted. So we didn't go into all the other things. We said for free run, hens indoors. And I think for free range, we said pasture access and things like that. So we just tried to make it simple. And so far seems to be working. And yeah, you can't muddy it up with too much definition, because people also don't have time at the grocery store. So I had another point in there, but I forgot what it is, so I'm going to sit down and pass over to Dr. Fraser.